Unexpected visitors. Marcus Chen wiped the synthetic oil from his hands with a worn cloth, leaving another dark stain on the already grimy fabric. The repair bay of Station Omega-7 hummed with the constant background noise of life support systems and automated machinery. For 8 years, this had been his home, his workplace, and his sanctuary all rolled into one. The isolation suited him perfectly. No corporate oversight breathing down his neck, no chattering co-workers disrupting his concentration, just him and the endless parade of damaged spacecraft that needed his expertise. At 42, Marcus had seen every type of ship malfunction imaginable. Plasma drives that had been pushed beyond their limits, navigation computers fried by solar flares, hull breaches from asteroid impacts, and life support systems held together with little more than determination and spare parts. He took pride in being able to fix anything that limped into his station, no matter how hopeless it seemed. His reputation had spread throughout this sector of space, earning him the unofficial title of miracle worker among the independent traders and freight runners who frequented these routes. The morning started like any other. Marcus reviewed his work orders over a cup of synthetic coffee that tasted only marginally better than engine coolant. 3 ships were scheduled to arrive over the next week, all routine maintenance jobs that would barely challenge his skills. He was looking forward to the predictable work when the proximity alarms began screaming throughout the station. Marcus rushed to the main control console, his boots clanging against the metal deck plates. The sensor readings made no sense. 3 massive objects were approaching the station, but they registered as neither ships nor asteroids. The energy signatures were completely unlike anything in his database. The objects were enormous, each one easily 5 times the size of the largest cargo hauler he had ever serviced. Yet they moved with an organic fluidity that defied conventional propulsion systems. The main view screen flickered to life, and Marcus felt his blood turn to ice, water in his veins. 3 creatures floated in the void beyond his station, their massive forms silhouetted against the starfield. They were dragons, impossible as it seemed. Not the mythical creatures of ancient Earth legends, but something far more extraordinary. Their bodies were covered in scales that shimmered with an inner light, creating patterns of bioluminescence that pulsed rhythmically along their flanks. Enormous wings stretched out from their serpentine bodies, wings that should have been useless in the vacuum of space, yet somehow propelled them forward with graceful efficiency. The largest of the 3 dragons drifted closer to the station's docking bay, its head easily the size of a small shuttle. Its eyes, glowing with an intense blue radiance, seemed to look directly at Marcus through the view screen. There was intelligence in that gaze, an awareness that sent chills down his spine. This was no mindless beast, but something far more complex and sophisticated. Marcus forced himself to breathe steadily as he activated the station's emergency protocols. His training kicked in, overriding the shock and disbelief. Whatever these creatures were, they had approached his station for a reason. As a professional repair technician, his first priority was to assess the situation and determine if they posed a threat. The communications console crackled to life, but instead of voices, it produced a series of harmonious tones that seemed to resonate through the station's hull. The sound was hauntingly beautiful, like the songs of Earth's whales, mixed with the chiming of crystal bells. Marcus realized the creatures were trying to communicate with him. He quickly accessed the station's Universal Translation Matrix, a sophisticated system designed to decode languages from dozens of known species. The Matrix struggled with the dragon's communications, producing fragmented results on the screen: help, repair, urgent, damage. The words appeared sporadically, but the meaning was becoming clear. These creatures were not here to attack or invade. They needed assistance. Marcus activated the external cameras and focused them on the 3 dragons. Now that he was looking more carefully, he could see the damage they had sustained. The largest dragon's left wing showed tears in the membrane between the supporting struts, and several scales along its neck flickered erratically, their bioluminescence failing intermittently. The second dragon had what appeared to be impact damage along its flank, a section where the scales had been torn away to reveal the complex structure underneath. The third dragon's injuries were the most severe, with a gaping wound along its spine that exposed internal systems that pulsed with their own inner light. As Marcus studied the damaged areas more closely, he began to notice something extraordinary. The scales were not simple biological armor, but appeared to be integrated with sophisticated technology. Where the wounds revealed the creature's internal structure, he could see a fusion of organic tissue and advanced machinery, neural pathways, intertwined with fiber optic cables, biological organs working in harmony with quantum processors. These were not pure creatures, but biomechanical hybrids, living ships that had achieved a perfect synthesis between biology and technology. The realization hit Marcus like a plasma discharge. These dragons were the most advanced form of spacecraft he had ever encountered, and they had come to him for repairs. The largest dragon moved closer to the station's primary docking bay, its movements careful and deliberate. The communications continued, the tones becoming more complex and urgent. The translation matrix worked harder, producing longer phrases: ancient Earth, lost, return, time, damage, critical. Marcus made a decision that would change his life forever. He activated the docking bay's emergency override and began the sequence. To extend the atmospheric containment field, corporate regulations strictly forbade any contact with unregistered alien species. But these creatures clearly needed help. And Marcus had never been one to let regulations stand in the way of doing what was right. The docking bay's massive doors cycled open, and the containment field extended outward, creating a breathable atmosphere within the energy barrier. The largest dragon approached slowly, its massive form barely fitting within the expanded containment area. As it settled into the bay, Marcus could see the full extent of its injuries and the incredible complexity of its biomechanical systems. He approached the creature cautiously, tools in hand, his professional instincts overriding his natural fear. The dragon's great head turned toward him, those luminous blue eyes focusing on his face. For a moment, time seemed suspended as human and dragon ship regarded each other across the vastness of their differences. Then something extraordinary happened. Images began forming in Marcus's mind, not forced or invasive, but offered gently like memories shared between old friends. He saw Earth as it had been centuries ago, green and blue and beautiful, before humanity had spread to the stars. He saw explorers, brave humans who had ventured into the deepest regions of space in search of new worlds and new knowledge. The images continued, showing him how these explorers had encountered an ancient alien species that had developed the ultimate fusion of biology and technology. The aliens were dying, their civilization coming to an end, but they offered their knowledge to the human explorers. The process was irreversible, transforming the humans into something new, something that could traverse not just the physical distances between stars, but the dimensional barriers that separated different realities. The dragons were not aliens at all. They were humans, evolved and transformed, who had become lost in the spaces between dimensions for centuries. Now they had finally found their way back to normal space, but the journey had damaged them severely. They needed repair, and they needed someone who understood both the mechanical and the biological aspects of their nature. Marcus looked up at the massive creature before him, understanding flooding through his consciousness. These were his people, humanity's children who had chosen a different path of evolution. They had returned home seeking help, and fate had brought them to his repair station. He rolled up his sleeves and began gathering the specialized tools would need. The work ahead would be unlike anything he had ever attempted, but Marcus Chen had never backed down from a challenge. As he prepared to begin the most important repair job of his career, he could feel the weight of history settling on his shoulders. This was bigger than just fixing damaged spacecraft. This was about helping humanity's lost children find their way home. The other two dragons positioned themselves near the docking bay, waiting their turn for treatment. Their communications continued, a complex harmony of tones that Marcus was beginning to understand contained not just words, but emotions, memories, and hopes for the future. They had traveled across dimensions and through time itself to reach this moment, and now everything depended on the skills of one human repair technician working alone in the depths of space. Marcus powered up his diagnostic equipment and approached the damaged section of the dragon's wing. The biomechanical tissue responded to his touch, cells and circuits working together in ways that challenged everything he thought he knew about engineering and biology. But as he began to understand the underlying principles, he realized that this fusion represented the ultimate evolution of human technology. These creatures had achieved what every engineer dreamed of, perfect harmony between the organic and the artificial. As he worked, Marcus felt a sense of purpose he had never experienced before. This was more than just another repair job. This was his chance to help write the next chapter in humanity's story among the stars. The repair and revelation. Marcus worked through the station's artificial night cycle, his hands moving with practiced precision as he carefully integrated replacement components into the dragon's damaged wing structure. The biomechanical tissue responded to his ministrations like nothing he had ever encountered before. Living cells accepted synthetic materials as readily as they did organic replacements, while quantum processors adapted to biological neural networks with seamless efficiency. The dragon, which had begun communicating its name as something like Skyweaver in the harmonic tones of its language, remained patient throughout the delicate procedure. Occasionally it would share images or sensations through their growing mental connection, helping Marcus understand how the damaged systems were supposed to function. The experience was unlike anything in his engineering training, yet somehow felt natural and right. As he sealed the final connection in the wing membrane, Marcus stepped back to admire his work. The bioluminescent patterns along the wing had returned to their steady rhythm, and the dragon's movements seemed more fluid and comfortable. Skyweaver's great head turned toward him, and Marcus felt a wave of gratitude wash over him through their neural link. The second dragon, introducing itself as Void Glider, moved into the repair bay next. Its injuries were more complex, involving damage to the primary sensory array along its neck and a disruption in the quantum navigation systems integrated into its skull. Marcus found himself working with technology that was centuries ahead of anything produced by current human civilization. Yet the underlying principles remained familiar. Humans had created these hybrid beings, and human ingenuity still formed the foundation of their incredible capabilities. While he worked on Voyager's navigation systems, Marcus learned more about their incredible journey. The dragons shared memories of their transformation, showing him the moment when the ancient alien benefactors had offered their gift. The process had been voluntary, chosen by explorers who were willing to sacrifice their human forms to gain abilities that would allow them to venture into realms no normal spacecraft could reach. They had spent subjective centuries exploring dimensions that existed parallel to normal space, cataloging wonders that defied description and making contact with forms of life that existed as pure energy or crystallized thought. But the dimensional passages had taken their toll on both their biological and mechanical systems, creating the damage that had brought them back to normal space, seeking repair. The most severely injured dragon, calling itself Starweaver, presented the greatest challenge. The wound along its spine had damaged not just the physical structure, but the neural pathways that connected its consciousness to its ship body. This dragon had been a brilliant scientist before the transformation, and its hybrid form was designed for deep space research and analysis. The damage threatened to sever the connection between mind and vessel permanently. As Marcus worked on the complex neural interfaces, Starweaver shared its most precious memories. It showed him civilizations they had encountered in the dimensional void, species that had evolved beyond physical form into pure consciousness, technologies that could manipulate the fundamental forces of reality itself. But it also shared a deep longing for home, for connection with the human species that had given birth to these transformed explorers. The repair work on Starweaver's neural systems required components that Marcus did not have in his standard inventory. He was forced to improvise, cannibalizing parts from his own stations, systems, and modifying them for biological integration. The work was incredibly delicate, requiring him to interface directly with the dragon's consciousness to guide the neural pathways to their proper connections. During one particularly complex procedure, Marcus found his mind fully merged with Starweaver's consciousness. For a brief, overwhelming moment, he experienced existence as a dragon ship. He felt the sensation of wings catching solar winds, the flow of cosmic radiation through biomechanical scales, the vast loneliness of deep space, and the incredible joy of discovery that had driven these beings across dimensions in search of knowledge. But he also felt something else, something that chilled him to the core. Through Starweaver's memories, he sensed other presences in the dimensional void, ancient and malevolent entities that had taken notice of the dragon's return to normal space. These beings, older than human civilization, viewed the biomechanical hybrids as abominations that had violated the natural order. They were coming, following the dragon's trail back to this reality. Marcus pulled his consciousness back from the neural link, gasping as his individual awareness reasserted itself. Starweaver's great eye focused on him with concern and understanding. The dragon had deliberately shared that final vision, warning him of the danger that their rescue had brought to this region of space. As if summoned by his thoughts, the station's long-range sensors began detecting anomalous readings at the edge of the solar system. Multiple contacts were approaching, their energy signatures unlike anything in the database. But these were not more dragons seeking repair. These contacts radiated hostility and otherworldly menace that made Marcus's primitive survival instincts scream warnings. The three dragons responded immediately to the new threat, their communications becoming rapid and urgent. Through the shared mental link, Marcus understood that these were the entities that had pursued them across dimensions, ancient beings that existed to maintain what they considered the proper separation between realities. They would not tolerate the dragon's presence in normal space, and they would destroy anything that had helped the hybrids. Skyweaver, its repairs complete, moved to the edge of the docking bay, and began preparations for departure. But its wing systems, though repaired, were still not fully integrated. It would need time to adjust to the replacement components before it could achieve full flight capability. Time they did not have. Voyage Lighter's navigation systems were functioning, but the complex quantum processors were still synchronizing with its biological neural networks. The Dragon could fly, but its ability to navigate through dimensional barriers remained compromised, and Starweaver, despite Marcus's best efforts, still suffered from the disconnection between its consciousness and its ship-body. Marcus realized with growing horror that the repairs, though successful, had not fully restored the Dragon's ability to escape back into the dimensional void. They were trapped in normal space, vulnerable to the approaching entities that had hunted them across realities. And Marcus, by helping them, had made himself and his station targets as well. But as fear threatened to overwhelm him, Marcus felt something else stirring in his consciousness. The neural connections he had formed with the dragons during the repair process had changed him. He could sense their thoughts and emotions, feel the quantum fluctuations in their biomechanical systems, even perceive the approach of the hostile entities through senses he had never possessed before. Starweaver's great head moved close to his, and Marcus felt the dragon's proposition rather than heard it. There was a way to complete the repairs, to restore the full connection between consciousness and ship-body that would allow all three dragons to escape. But it required a human consciousness to serve as a bridging interface. Someone willing to temporarily merge their mind with the dragons, systems, and risk, becoming permanently absorbed into the hybrid collective. Marcus looked around his repair station, at the tools and equipment that had been his life for 8 years, at the framed photograph of his sister's family that was his only personal possession. He thought about the approaching entities and the certainty of destruction if he did nothing. Then he thought about humanity's children, these incredible beings who had sacrificed everything to push the boundaries of knowledge and exploration. The choice was obvious. Marcus placed his hands on the neural interface ports that Starweaver had extended from its neck, feeling the biomechanical connectors respond to his touch. The dragon's consciousness reached out to his, offering one last chance to refuse the dangerous procedure. But Marcus had made his decision. He was an engineer, a problem solver, and this was the ultimate repair challenge. The connection formed. Slowly, Marcus's human consciousness merging with Starweaver's vast hybrid awareness. He felt himself expanding beyond the limitations of his physical form, his mind touching systems and sensations that spanned the spectrum from pure biology to quantum mechanics. Through Starweaver's senses, he could perceive the approaching entities, as tears in the fabric of reality itself, wounds in space-time that radiated malevolent intent. But he could also feel the dragon's damaged neural pathways responding to his presence. The bridging interface his human consciousness provided, allowing the proper connections to reform. The biomechanical systems synchronized, quantum processors aligned with biological neural networks, and Starweaver's full capabilities returned in a rush of restored functionality. The repair was complete, but Marcus found himself changed by the experience. Part of his consciousness remained linked to the dragons, creating a permanent connection that allowed him to perceive reality through their enhanced senses. He was still human, but he was also something more. A bridge between his species and their transformed descendants. The three dragons prepared for departure, their systems now fully functional and their ability to traverse dimensional barriers restored. But as they positioned themselves to escape back into the void between realities, They turned their attention to Marcus one final time. Through the neural link, they offered him a choice. He could return to his normal life, his consciousness, gradually adapting to carry the permanent connection without losing his essential humanity. Or he could join them, allowing his body to be transformed as theirs had been, becoming part of their exploration of the infinite dimensions beyond normal space. Marcus looked one last time at his repair station, then at the approaching signatures of the entities that sought to destroy everything he had worked to preserve. The choice was not difficult. Humanity's greatest strength had always been its willingness to adapt, to explore, to reach beyond the comfortable and familiar in search of something greater. As the dragons prepared to slip back into the dimensional void, Marcus Chen, master repair technician, stepped forward to begin the next chapter of human evolution among the stars.